Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from beautiful Rishikesh on the River Ganga, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kastubadas. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome to really sleep in Saturday because it's 11 a.m. You guys are really sleeping in today. What's going on? Actually, we're doing the show later today because we got a big full day on this pilgrim. I can't even remember how this day started, but 5:30 yoga, satsang on the banks of the Ganga, dipping in the Ganga. Then a bunch of us went whitewater rafting down the Ganga, chanted the whole way, except for the massive rapids. And then we got back for lunch and then headed down to the bazaar and just sat and had this out of control kirtan. It was beautiful. Eileen ripped it up. So fun, and so many Indians gather around, just sing. It's such a beautiful thing to witness.
Then why are you so grumpy today then?
Why am I grumpy? You know what? I'm a cross between self-realized and hangry. I'm somewhere in between self-realized and hangry, my friend.
I mean,
well, we just get back late.
You're gonna be grumpy,
we get back, it's late, and I'm just wiped out. I'm wiped out. I'm not doing yoga.
Happy now. Aren't
tomorrow.
You happy?
Yoga's over tomorrow. I'm sorry. I need a break. And we are going for a hike tomorrow. Anyway, everything's great though. Otherwise, who's at our kirtan? Oh, Radha Kund came to our kirtan.
Get out.
Radha Kund came to our kirtan.
Oh, I love Radha Kund.
We love Radha Kund. Do we ever have him on the show?
No, we should have Radha Kund on the show.
We should have Radha Kund. The guy is an interesting guy, interesting life. Traveled to all the holy places, begged his mother.
He's a brahmachari. He's a monk, right?
Yeah. Begged his mother. He was like an engineer in Saudi Arabia. And like his mother was
foreman of
like,
some kind of projects over there or something.
Yeah, you know how Indians are so respectful to their parents compared to American kids who like can't give a crap about their parents very often. Especially when they're 13, 14, 15. No?
What?
Well, you know what I mean. Yeah, no. Indians are very respectful.
He's coming out a little grumpy today, but go ahead.
I'm a little grumpy. But anyway, he was just asking his mother, I just want to be a sadhu. And she kept on saying, no, you cannot be a sadhu. And then finally just like, can't take this anymore. I want to become a sadhu. And he traveled all over India. So many institutions wanted him to become like the leader of their math, and then he met Radhanath Swami and he fell at Radhanath Swami's feet and fell in love with him. And now he organizes all the Mahayatras. I'm doing a pretty big pilgrimage because I got like 50 people with us.
It's nothing, Raghunath.
Nothing. Radha Kund led
by 100.
Radha Kund organized a retreat for Radhanath Swami with 8,000 people.
You know how many buses that is? That's like 300 buses or something. That's like
you know how many chapatis 8,000 people is? They organize a traveling kitchen that just travels around. And I mean, it's you got to schedule this thing a year in advance. You're coming into towns. Are you frozen? Am I frozen? Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Yeah, it's on. I don't know how that could even be done.
Okay, we can't go too deep into this. Okay, we got questions to get to. But do we have any announcements?
By the way, though, we Americans can't even. I mean, you're a caterer. If I said, "Hey, you're going to cater for 8,000 people,"
pulled it back.
Can you pull that off?
She can't do it.
No, you can't pull that off. Americans can't even fathom cooking, and it's not like they're going to Trader Joe's and buying tater tots. They're cooking everything from scratch. Anyway, it's question and answer day. It's live day. And everybody's going to come and ask some questions live. I like that. We get to meet these people, find out what keeps them ticking, what made them turn the corner in their bhakti to get them to India.
Before we get started on that, Kastuba, do you want to talk about your interview tomorrow?
We have a great interview coming up tomorrow, and this is Sharon Agati. This is a really cool woman. When she was raised as a devotee, right? Her parents were Krishna devotees in Bhakti tradition. Even took some of her schooling was in that realm in ashrams. But when she was, I don't know at what age, but she became a model, and she became a really high-end model. Like her name is Shara McLean, and she got into just a whole nother world. Kind of like stepped away from her devotional world and got into the whole, being a model and partying and the whole, what do you call that, the high life or something, Ragnar? How would you?
Oh, yeah, that's like the best.
Okay.
High life.
and anyway, then she struggled. She didn't find happiness there. She found addiction there and struggles there and pain there. And then she kind of turned her life back, to the devotional realm. And now she's got a little animal sanctuary, and she's just got right back. Now she's one of our sage group leaders, actually. But she just has a fascinating story to tell. So we'll be hearing from Sharanagati tomorrow. I think we switch it back to 8 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow. We'll do it at 8 a.m.
Okay. But we're not there. We're not doing it.
You won't be there. Try to come if you can.
Okay. Maybe we can, actually.
If Mara could start it, that would be awesome. Let's stay in touch on that. We'll stay in touch on that.
Our people will call your people. Okay.
All right. So that's tomorrow. Yeah, that'll be good interview.
Very great. Any other announcements?
Mara?
Back to recovery.
Speak to the mic.
Stop stealing the mic then.
It's my mic.
I know it is your mic. Back to recovery
It's actually
meeting
her
at
mic.
9:30 today. Yeah, it's true.
It's actually her mic.
Okay, back to
All righty. Stephanie Berman, come on down. You're the first question.
Stephanie is a good friend.
Yeah. Here, you pull up in the seat now. Stephanie Berman, she's
a high-level person in the world.
High level. She's a high-class cookie. Is that an offense to call a woman a cookie?
I think it is.
I think it is. I think. Stephanie, what's your story?
Some may be offended by it, Ragnar.
Some may be offended by calling him a cookie. Stephanie, but before we have your question, you were telling me your story in the car. Can you give us a little mini bio of your life and some Krishna miracles? Come a little closer. I want to see your lovely face, and I want you to speak right.
Got to get right up to the mic.
Right up to the mic. Yeah.
Is
What's
that
your
good?
story? Tell me your bio.
So I had a colleague, Pradeep, who had done the teacher training with you out in Govardhan, out at the Eco Village, and met Kaustubha there, who invited Pro in center to do some work on how to position yourselves
for the Bhakti Center. I can say that 1 year we came back from the Eco Village. Pro had become our student there, and all I knew was that he had something to do in the world of advertising and promotion, all that. And when I got back that year, I reached out to him. I said, "Hey, could you help the Bhakti Center? We have a few questions." And he said, "Come on down to our offices." And I got there, and it was like some huge, massive agency, and Pro is like a vice president or something there, and some brilliant marketing genius. And then he brought in Stephanie, and Stephanie, I think, was the creative director and I believe like a partner in the firm, right? And we took years to develop strategies and understand where we're at and all. And then they said, well, they asked us for 10 minutes, they asked us questions, and then they threw out like everything that we had come up with exactly, like it was uncanny, and then better. It was like, and they did that in 10 minutes. I was like, these people know what they're doing. But she very graciously, just like those two just like took us on as like a pro bono client, and they did a lot for the Bhakti Center. It was really, really generous and kind to them.
And Pro is from like, it's from an Indian family, very sophisticated, beautiful Indian family, loves Bhakti, was a regular Zoomer for a long time, still an other out there. But Stephanie, I think, just did it out of the kindness of her heart and her friendship with Pro. She's like, she's a yogi. This isn't my path.
Yeah.
She's a yogi.
Yeah.
Okay.
I said, he invited me in because I was interested in yoga. And I said, this isn't my path. I don't know Bhakti, but I can see that the Bhakti Center is doing really good work in the world. And so it would be my privilege to serve, to help. And so we did work with Kaustubha, on the rebranding, the design. It was such a joy. And coming out of that, we're invited to go and do some similar work at the Eco Village.
Yeah.
And so I found myself on a plane working out there, which happened to be when you were doing your next year's teacher training.
That's right.
And found myself not really understanding the significance of it, but presenting my work to Radhanath Swami. And, when I think of it now with, a few years more perspective, it blows my mind, and those things don't happen coincidentally, and so, the famous words, "This is not my path." Well, it kind of turned out to be. And so,
Amazing.
yeah. And so then, I did the teacher training with Raghu a couple of years ago at Super Soul. And you had said, learn it, live it, give it. And I hadn't done it to teach. I thought, I can't take something else on in my life. But that resonated with me. And I got home that Sunday. And on the Monday morning, I got on my mat and I put it out there that, if I am meant to serve in this way, show me how. And that day, I got 2 phone calls. And one was a friend who was going through some very challenging times in the UK, the very last person I thought would be interested, and they asked me to help them. And it was, a great privilege to teach them their first yoga class and, do some online practices in the middle of the pandemic. And then I had a reach out from work, pandemic time, everything shut down. We'd had somebody teaching Zoom classes 3 mornings a week, and they had to quit. And so they reached out and said, would you do that? And so I considered that my first Krishna miracle.
Wow. So the context of this question, we should all understand that Stephanie is actually a very high level executive in the world. She's not like a small,
Very
she's
high
like
level. You're not
very
like
high level
one of these,
person.
like fly by night guys like me.
Thank you.
She's very sophisticated.
Okay. Just want to get that out
She lost it. She lost it in the kirtan tonight, right?
I lost my material mind. I did. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Okay. I think people are turning off their screens because we heard you clearly the whole time, but your screen visually it froze a bit. So maybe if people can do that, please turn off your screens. All right, let's get into it, Raghunath.
All right, here's the question.
Okay. So
into the mic. Yeah.
Okay, we are on a trip where we are completely focused, or trying to be completely focused, on our spiritual life. And I have trouble aligning that with my working life at the best of times. And so stepping back into work, coming off of a trip like this, I'm not sure how to kind of make that work. And, I've come to think about what I do as my dharma, and try to serve in the way that I interact with people, helping people stay steady and find confidence and do things they didn't necessarily think that they were able to do. That said, there are times where I either have to hold confidences that are difficult, not wrong, but difficult, commercially right, but they affect people's lives and livelihoods. That's hard. And then my job is to actually criticize. I have to criticize the work, and I have to criticize people to make, the work right. And so,
do you yell at them when you do that? Do you come in and just say, "This is garbage"? I do.
Throw it on the floor.
No. In my mind, I do sometimes.
Okay.
But no. But those are difficult things, and so I'm just curious how to kind of make through that. That will how do you step, in my point of view, the commercial working world after a trip like this and have it make sense. And one answer you could give me is retire to the cave up the road.
Yeah,
And live
that
on
was
the
my
bank.
answer.
That was it.
That was my answer. You seem to have read my mind.
She's getting good at it.
Next question, please.
Would you like to start,
Just think of
Raghunath?
how much you put down into your mortgage, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I think that cave is free, actually. That's one bill gone. Thank you, Raghunath. You know, there
Thank
is
you for
this
that
thing to
question, though, Stephanie.
Yeah, great question. Sure. Thank
Don't
you.
go. You could. All right.
Oh, don't go. Sorry.
Go.
Stupid says you can't go. So it's one of these
Either way,
things.
whatever.
Krishna is so powerful and a purifying force that to the degree that you add him to your life, it starts to shake up your regular, anything material within you starts to get shaken up. And Krishna only comes to the degree we call him. If we call him a little, he'll come a little. If you call him a lot, he'll come a lot. If you call him 24/7, you'll be fully Krishna conscious. So to the degree that you call him, there'll be Krishna in your workplace. And sometimes if you're calling him aloud, it might completely, re-scramble the workplace. And sometimes it'll make you say, I'm not doing this work anymore. That being said, I'm going to do it in a completely different consciousness now. Everything's going to radically change. But that really depends sort of on you. And I think part two of that question is like, and how do you take these teachings? Because right now we're doing it. We're 24/7 Krishna. That's all we can do. I mean, whatever, you might pull over to the side and scroll through your Instagram for whatever. But for the most part, there's not much downtime here. I got everybody learning shlokas, bathing in the Ganga, up early, hearing and chanting. And so there's not a lot of downtime for the minds. Whereas, at home, there's a lot of other things we're engaged in. So it is very, very purifying, to say the least. And one natural thing on pilgrimage is stuff starts to surface. People start to break down. People start to break into tears. People start to say things like, what have I been doing? This is a very, very cathartic time in one's life. It's 24/7 inviting Krishna in. And that's what I'm pushing everybody to do also. So the best thing you could do is while you're here, because when you're living like this in this environment, you become a little sober, and it puts in perspective like, wow, this is actually very, very important to me. How am I going to do this when I get home? So what you can do is, you, in a very sober mind, you can start making some parameters. You know what? I'm going to give this much time to my spiritual life every day. I'm going to block out a certain time in the morning, a certain time in the evening, a certain time at noon, whatever. I'm going to stop. I'm going to cut this out of my life. This wasn't serving me. This was like embracing a cactus. It was not good at all. I don't even know why I was doing this. This person was so toxic. I don't even know why. We start to reprioritize our life. And next thing you know, sometimes we just got to cut the fat, so to speak. And that starts to change, letting go of something that was, suppose you were a chain smoker, but you came on pilgrimage, and you just say, you know what, I can't do that anymore. I can't do it. I went 2 weeks without it. I'm not saying you were, but went 2 weeks without it, I just can't do it. And then you just, like some of these things, like they save time, energy, resources, etc. So now I think is a time to see what you want to let go and what you want to add when you get back, and write it down explicitly. And I think everybody on this pilgrimage may want to do that. If you're having some type of taste, a higher taste, and you want to keep that higher taste, write down, what do you want to add to your regular day, and what do you want to let go of? What do you think about that, Kustuba?
I appreciate that answer, Raghunath. Thank you for that. Yeah. And I'll take a little bit of a different angle.
All righty.
Really, this question that you're asking, it's so great, because the Bhagavad Gita is that text that speaks right to where you're coming from. The tension that someone has with their worldly responsibilities, their worldly occupations, and how can I be practicing spirituality and at the same time living in the material world? And, of course, in the Bhagavad Gita, it takes place in the context of Arjuna's struggle. He wants spiritual life. He's feeling anxiety. He's feeling fear, frustration intensely. He wants to become a yogi. And his idea was, well, don't I need to wander off into the forest? Isn't that how you practice yoga? You remove yourself from all of this stuff. Otherwise, how do you ever get your mind clear? And Krishna's saying, no, Arjuna. Some may practice that way, but for most, they're going to practice a different way. You can embrace your social roles and your social responsibilities, but you do it with knowledge and you do it with detachment. And ultimately, you do it for me. That's like where the Gita, ultimately you do it for love, you do it for love of God and for every living being. So the Gita is all about that. I'd imagine your world is a very challenging one. I'd imagine it's like you've got high level clients. They're spending lots of money. There's lots of pressure to get results. You've got to turn to your team and they've got to come up with, quality, ideas and art and copy and all that. And there's probably just pressure just all around. And it must feel like I can't be the nice, kind, gentle person that I want to be at every moment. I can't, and even sometimes there's even questions of ethics. I'm not sure if what I'm working towards, I'm supporting something that I wholeheartedly am behind. So it's and the Bhagavad Gita is so fascinating because it's a real book of yoga. It's not like it's any compromise on its spirituality. But it takes it right into that world and says, you know what, Arjuna, let's get practical here. There's no endeavor in this world that's not covered a little bit by some kind of, this is a dirty world that we're living in. You're a warrior. You live in a world where you got to go out there and fight. So every endeavor is covered by some fault in this world. We're not in the spiritual realm, but if your intention is right, if you want to serve for the right reasons, then even this horrible ghastly work that you have to do can be turned into a spiritual offering. I'm not saying you, I'm talking about Arjuna.
Well, you don't know what she does. It might be ghastly.
You're right. And so the Bhagavad Gita is really practical, and on so many levels, it's saying, like in a practical sense, it's saying that there are two types of action that can be offered to God. Some of them are I would say it like this: they're naturally integrated into devotion, right? Reading Srimad Bhagavatam, that's an activity that is naturally integrated into bhakti. Chanting Hare Krishna mantra, naturally integrated. Worshipping the deity with the rituals and so on, naturally integrated. And then there are other activities that can be intentionally integrated, right? They're not naturally, they're disjointed. And that may be something going on in the business world, something, these are activities that are not by nature devotional, but that they can be offered and made devotional. And through that, they become acts of bhakti. And so one's occupation can be like that. And now the Bhagavad Gita is so practical, it's going to say that I'll share two ways that like there's a gradation that like you can progress. One is the 12th chapter of the Gita gives like a gradation in terms of like one's occupation. Like it's going to say, Arjuna, the best place to start right now, the best place where this all should be is that you think of me in your heart internally all the time, that you have this love, but you may not be able to do that. You may not, your mind and heart may not be there. Well, then practice the practices of Bhakti-yogi that will get you there. But you may not be able to do all that all the time because of the world that you're living in and so on. Okay, well then work, and while you're working, think of me. And you may say, well, you know what, in the world that I work in, it's so hard to think of you all the time. Okay, then work and give the fruits of the work to me. Well, socially, I can't even do that because of my family situation.
Sounds like me making excuses. I can't, I'm busy.
and then Krishna says, well, then just work and give the fruits to some good cause. So it's like you so that's one like kind of gradation or ladder. Oh my God, my battery, just 1 second. My battery's about to run out. Hold on. Sorry about this.
This would never happen to Raghunath. This would never happen to Raghunath.
I got it. Hold on.
Welcome to my world, Mr. Kastuba.
Okay. Well, I'm out of your
Every
world now,
time my
Raghunath.
computers died live on the podcast.
And then here's another gradation. Okay, so that was a gradation of like the internal absorption that one has, the internal yogic focus that one has. You want to progress on that path. There's also a progression of your own age, right? Like as you go through life, that you go through different stages. And so like I get the feeling that the nature of this question is like the pilgrimage is stirring within you an intensity of desire to practice and to practice more exclusively and more intensely. And that is exactly what this trip is supposed to do for you, right? It's supposed to ignite that and increase that, fan that flame that's in you. And then you're gonna and then you're gonna carry that back into your world, and that's gonna be in your goal is that even in that world I keep that flame alive. It's challenging, but you also know that like when I reach as I grow older, I can begin to let go of these responsibilities step by step. And like all the stories in Bhagavatam and Mahabharata, there's so many kings that are feeling the exact same way. I've got all this responsibility, and they're taking instruction from these sadhus, from these saintly wise sages about how they can increase the gradation of their devotion as they're in this world and gradually let it all go and reach that point in life where they're fully exclusively engaged in that. And so we see the kings walking away, we see Yudhishthira walking away, we see Bharata walking away, we see we see this again and again. So I think there's a ladder of ways to connect. Keep moving progressively, especially considering as you grow older, you can make a plan in life. When I reach this age, I'm ready to let it go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep coming on pilgrimage every year until then. So when that day comes, I'm really going to be ready for it. And one last thing to keep in mind is that although it's a fact that the people that we associate with and the places that we spend time and so on, they have an important effect, on our minds. Ultimately, there's no material impediment. In one sense, the field for you to practice bhakti is always favorable, because even when it's challenging, that feeling that you feel that I want to be more engaged, this isn't the world that I want to live in, that feeling is pure devotion in itself. And so, remember that even though that your external circumstances may be challenging, Arjuna's were as well, but the external circumstance is not an impediment. It can be flipped. It can be made favorable through practical, application of bhakti.
So what you're saying is it's more than a feeling.
Don't even go there.
More than a
He did it. He had to do it. You're in a holy dham, Raghunath. You should not even be going there.
Don't say it.
So in any case, I hope that's how, ultimately we're just deepening our faith and our trust in Krishna and your sincerity. I have no doubt in it. I have absolutely no doubt in it, and it's getting you through. So it's natural that you should feel that way, but yeah. I have complete faith that you're walking the path really nice and progressively.
Haribol, fully lost your material mind. Haribol, Stephanie, her husband, love having these guys. I think they are sophisticated. It's not just the Anglo-Saxon; they're actually sophisticated people.
Oh, they are.
We're going to bring on Brian on down. Brian, you might know Brian from his come on down. His wonderful wife, Kylie. And, he was holding
of course, Kylie, yeah.
Very, very.
Oh, hold it. So
meditation teacher, of course, regularly leads silent retreats. And next thing you know, he's married.
The question is, how much of that rumor do we want to clear up today on the podcast?
The rumor
being I just keep on embellishing that.
I think I'm going to let that go. I'm going to
okay.
with the embellishment, actually. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.
A little bit closer, please. Yeah, little.
You got to get closer.
Okay.
And
All right.
me and Brian been pillow fighting this whole time. So Brian is Kylie's husband, and Kylie is a regular Bhakti Kylie. She leads a lot of kirtans on this trip. Everybody loves her. She's regular on Zoom.
She's been on the news all over India now.
Been on the news. We've been on the news all over India, and she's getting interviewed and crying, and she's really like a genuine,
crying
beautiful,
in a good way, right?
Crying in a good way. Help me, please! If you can hear this, help me. No, she's like
Nothing works.
She's madly in love with Krishna. She's crying. She's wonderful.
Okay,
I love her. And then Brian's getting caught up in her riptide of bhakti, and he's a practicing Buddhist. A Vipassana meditation teacher. And are you a Bhakti guy?
He loves to embellish, so I'm just going to let him go. I'm just go ahead and make up my story.
All right, so did you turn the corner? Are you into Bhakti? What's your story? Tell us your story.
Well, you just told it, so I guess that's it. That's the whole story.
Are you coming as an observer or a practitioner or what? You tell me.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Well, aside from the embellished part about how Kylie and I met, I will say that she is all of those things. So, you judge a practice maybe by its practitioners.
Okay.
And having been on the Buddhist path for a long time, when we met, basically the first conversation that we had when we weren't silent anymore. Yes, was how important our individual paths were to us. And that was kind of primary, and that came before everything else, because everything else kind of flows from that. So we have been married for 3 years, and it's wonderful. And we just kind of respect each other's path. So I have literally a whole file in my phone of questions, because we sit on the blue chair a lot. You guys see us every once in a while. She's in the blue chair like every day. Yeah, and we're the ones that everybody goes shh about. So
for those that don't know, the what we're alluding to here is that they're on a Vipassana meditation retreat, which means you don't talk for 10 days, not a word, but somehow they found love there. So.
Well, it was actually a Zen retreat that she came to, because she had lost her voice doing a show before that. So she was looking for a silent retreat, and somehow mysteriously showed up to a Zen retreat. And I thought I knew everybody that was coming to the retreat, and I expected to recognize her when she showed up. And when she showed up, I was like, no, I don't recognize you. Where did you come from? So and she went, shh. And that was it. So we introduced ourselves, and then, it was a Zen retreat. So for about 5 days, we didn't talk.
It was all blinking. It was
that,
Morse code blinking.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, absolutely.
Love messages going back and forth.
So are you getting dragged around here? Or are you like enjoying yourself? Are you getting anything out of this? The kirtan, the philosophy? What's going on?
I love this path.
Okay.
I love this path. And I just try to find parallels, and I look at where the similarities are. And it's very easy for me to see how Buddhism flows from the whole Vedanta tradition. Sure. And I see all of these parallels. So we have a lot of conversations about similarities, mostly, or some differences. And we're just kind of trying to suss this out, or at least I am.
Sure.
Kyle is 100% in, and I'm sort of like, well, let me ask you a couple of questions.
All right. So
that's kind of where we are today. So I've got files of questions, and then, and Prabhu here was like, you need to ask a question. And I'm like scrolling through my phone, like, I don't even know where to start.
All right, well, let's start. What do you got?
All right. I don't know which one you all wanted me to read, but
read it right into the mic.
Limited time and unlimited questions. So, you guys, so we already did the Kylie Brown thing. First question, right? I haven't yet experienced Krishna Prema, or divine love of Krishna, but I'm trying. Right.
It's really good. You gotta try it.
I know. I mean, I get it. So I was thinking about this because it's very easy for me to understand love of Kyle, right? Of Kylie, because we fell in love, we got married. I mean, I get all that, right? So I was thinking about India, arranged marriages, and I thought, loving Krishna is kind of like an arranged marriage, right? It's sort of like, okay, I'm going to decide. I'm with Krishna, and I'm going to decide to love Krishna, right? So kind of this whole idea of sort of developing love over time. And I don't know. So if all we have to do is add Krishna to our life, is it possible for an agnostic or someone that's Buddhist on the Buddhist path to uncover prema in relation to Krishna over time? So, you know, a lot of times people will say, you just have to have faith, you know? And I think love develops over time. And this, I sort of, in some ways, maybe am conflating the two, but this idea of loving Krishna and sort of having faith at the same time. And there's a question there somewhere, but I'll just sort of throw that out there and see what you all have to say.
Very good question. Very good
Very
question.
interesting.
Okay, you want to go first, brother?
Okay. So yeah,
Brother
it is.
K?
A very, yeah, it's such an interesting question. It's the different yoga paths, and when I say yoga paths, I'm including Buddhism in there with it. There's a sadhana, which means that there's the daily practice that one does, and there's the sadhya, which means there's a target, there's a goal that one's aiming at to achieve through that practice. And so, and this is something that I think is important. I speak on it occasionally, but I think a lot of what gets presented in the yoga world nowadays, let's say in the Western yoga world, I think other elements, other new age elements sometimes get blended into the message, and we hear messages like it's all about the journey and so on and so forth. But, you know, traditionally yoga, the journey is great, but it's aiming at, it's not only aiming, it not only has a goal, it has a goal with an intensity of focus is what yoga means, right? Like there's an intense focus on the goal. And so, whereas like much of the sadhanas are similar, like so much of the philosophy and the ideas are similar, because all these different yoga paths, as well as Buddhism, they're cultivating detachment from the things of this world. They're looking at it through a similar lens. Things are temporary. You know, the world is a world of pain. We have a spiritual existence beyond this. We need to cultivate kindness and simplicity in our lifestyles in order to enter into the realizations that we're meant to gain and realize our own spiritual nature, et cetera, et cetera. So much of that is all very similar. And so in one sense, and I think you mentioned this in one of the questions that you had, there's this statement in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, everyone is following my path, right? And so the way, from our perspective, from the perspective of Krishna Bhakti, anyone that's practicing yoga is moving towards that Krishna prema in one sense, right? If I'm practicing detachment, if I'm practicing kindness, if if I'm gaining control of my senses and all that, everybody's moving in the same direction, and that direction is towards him. That's our perspective. But we would say that at a certain point on that path, if you want the goal, you may have another goal, a goal of nirvana, a goal of kaivalya, a goal of moksha, or a goal of mystical powers, right? So that might be the goal, and so whoever's practicing,
but it's a benefit. Could be a benefit. Could use it. Because use it for good things.
Of course, that you would only use it for the best reasons. I know that. But
I saw a big snake today, Kastuba. Side squirrel. Saw a big snake. A bunch of people were jumping in the Ganga, like in the middle on the boats. An Indian group, and we were just standing up cruising, and all of a sudden, 5 foot snake swimming right towards them. We all got up and said, "Snake, snake, snake!" And they were like, "Yes, hello, hello." 11th hour, the guy with the oar saw it and just like shoot it away and went deep underwater.
Okay, right.
Thank you. Back to your answer.
Okay. So as I was saying, like, in other words, if you could picture in your mind like a chart, and you had all these different paths, and they're all moving up towards what we would say is Krishna, we would say that there are different goals that you might achieve on the way there. That might be moksha, liberation. That might be mystical powers. You might stop there. Like that's even why, like the Bhakti-yogi acharyas, the great teachers, they don't recommend Ashtanga yoga because they know you might get caught up in the mystical powers and not go the whole way, and back to Krishna. So our thing is like, yeah, all these practices, if they're moving in that direction, you're moving towards Krishna. But if you want Krishna prema, if that becomes one's goal or focus, then there'll be sadhanas designed for that specifically. There'll be that bring one's mind to Krishna in the, it's I'm cultivating a specific types of thoughts and sentiments. Well, then you read Bhagavatam, then you read about Krishna's life. If you're going to fall in love with Krishna, you have to hear about him, for instance. Then you chant mantras that are focused on him. Then you do your ritual with a focus on him, like that. So I would say, yeah, anybody practicing yoga is moving in that direction. But if your focus goal becomes Krishna prema, love for Krishna, then at a certain point your sadhana has to have that focus. Does that help?
Very beautiful.
Thank you.
Very beautiful. I'm going to give a short answer here.
Okay.
Your material life is over. Your wife's a pure devotee. Your wife's a pure devotee, and you love your wife. That's all you have to do in bhakti is love great souls, and you become a great soul. That's all you have to do. It just works that way. You'll follow your wife right back to Krishna prema. You won't even realize you're doing it. And you hear on a regular basis you're going, maybe it's just to be dutiful husband. Like, yeah, I want to support my wife. This is her thing. I appreciate it. It's not my thing. That's the Stephanie Berman thing. It's not my path. It's not my path. Next thing you know, Harry. How many of us said this is not my path? Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, it's one of these things. You're getting swept up in her riptide of pure ecstatic love. You can't help yourself. I hate to break it to you. Your material life is over. So it's not. So in one sense, you're being dutiful. In one sense, you appreciate it. That's all you have to do. You don't have to be sort of like down and out, facing the gutter to be like, I need God. You might just want to be like, you might like these things. They make reasonable sense. It's interesting, at least. And then you hear about Krishna and you hear about these pastimes. You go to look where you are. Look where you're going. Come on. And so, and next thing you know, after a while, there's going to be a taste for this thing. What's going to happen is you're going to go back and you're going to have some old buddies like, come on, Brian, let's have some fun like the old days. And you're going to be like, this wasn't fun. That just wasn't fun anymore. And so what'll happen is you're going to start to analyze. You're going to use this stuff as like a sounding board for like, what is joy in my life and what is noise in my life? What is pain in my life? I thought that pain was fun. And then all of a sudden you're going to realize like, no, wait, I found a better way here without even trying it. I stumbled into a treasure. It's as if treasures from heaven have been sprinkling down on my lap. That's what happened. And because you do it, and I know this guy, because he does it without any offense. Even if he has a question, he writes them down. He's not nasty. He's kind. He's soft-hearted. He's got a big open heart and a great attitude. He's on the express train, whether you know it or not. It's like you stumble upon a train. Ever do that in New York? You just get on the wrong train. Next thing you know, next stop, 165th Street. And you're like, what? And you can't even help it. But you've just been bathing in the Ganges all week. Come on. Your material life's over. Don't even have to worry about it.
I'm not suggesting that it's not over. I guess that was the reference to the arranged marriage, right? We all know arranged marriage work out really well, right? So the idea that you're already on a parallel path and then you get swept up, like you said, I was just saying, does the Krishna prema come along the way as opposed to
I think if you put both of our answers together, it's kind of like saying that it's kind of like Raghunath saying just by your love and your connection with your wife, you're already practicing sadhanas that are aimed at Krishna specifically. And I would add to that point, our theology, in other words, the sages within our particular lineage, when they look at the vast Vedic literature and they kind of mine it and churn it to get to its essence, what they found, what their statement is that Krishna prema is actually eternally situated within the heart of every living being. That is our very nature. So if that's the case, then when you fall into the arena of Krishna bhakti and its sadhanas and its practices, then it's kind of natural. It's very easy to get swept up into, because we would say that it's calling to the very core of your being.
Very beautiful, man. Very beautiful. Yeah, you're in. You're in.
Very nice to
Should we
meet you.
get-
I've seen you so many times, but to speak with you for the first time.
I can't wait to meet you in person.
Yeah, we got to do it.
He's great.
It'll happen.
Definitely.
Okay, let's keep him up here for more questions because he's got like.
The last question was an interesting one, I thought. The last one that you sent over, Raghunath, about.
yeah.
Let me see. If I can find
Yeah. Okay. So that's question number 3. So we'll skip the second one and go to 3, which may be more applicable for everybody. Is that the one you want?
I'm not sure about numbers, but
This is like how can anyone be responsible for being misled by the heart and mind Krishna gave us?
there you go.
Right.
You want to start with it? Why don't you read it again? Say it again.
Read the whole question.
All right. I'll speak for myself. How can I be responsible for being misled by the heart and mind Krishna gave me?
Right.
In other words, and the context is, of course, that I'm attracted to Buddhism, right? So
Yeah.
if that's not exactly the right path, how can I be responsible for being attracted to that path if the mind and heart that I was given is attracted to that path and Krishna gave it to me?
He's got a good point. It's Krishna's fault.
Well, that's what I was trying to do, is blame Krishna, of course.
Got a very, very good point. He finally stumped us.
You want to start with that, Raghu?
Everybody's got some free will, and of course, I mean, take it down a few notches. You're attracted to Buddhism. I'm attracted to all things illicit and crooked and criminal. You know what I mean? I thought it. I was a horrible person when I was growing up. I feel like, and I just got disgusted by it. But I was attracted to it. That's the heart and mind I got. But how did I get it? I practiced it. I practiced it from previous lives. We're born with what we are. You know what I mean? But it's not. I can't blame Krishna for that because I chose it somewhere down the path. I chose people to hang out with, choices to make, and I have to take radical responsibility if I want to recover, right?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Raghunath. Yeah, I would say I would start right where Raghunath started. Is we have free will. So he granted us certain equipment, like you say, the mind and heart, which really means the mind in both cases. I mean, heart can indicate different things, but in other words, we're given equipment, we're given a body, we're given the impulsive mind, we're given a sense of ego, a sense of identity, we're given an intellect, a discernment faculty. So we're given all that equipment, and then we have choices how we want to engage it. And so we might choose, and we begin to lose that sense of free will as we go. We can begin to lose that free will as we begin to make certain decisions, right? Like I make a decision today, it affects my ability to make the next decision tomorrow, right? Or we use this analogy sometimes. I'm driving a car, I have free will. And then I engage that free will in deciding that I will drive the car at 100 miles an hour. Now I've begun to limit my free will. I can't stop as quickly. I can't turn as quickly. What if I decide, well, according to my own free will, I'm going to decide to go off the exit ramp at 100 miles an hour. Well, it says 35 miles an hour. Yeah, but I have free will. Okay, well, now your earlier decision is going to affect your freedom even more when you crash the car. Now you can't drive at all. So we have that. We have this equipment in one sense. Yes, it is God given, but it's kind of like if a teenager, like the parents give them the car, and the kid goes out and crash. Well, it's not my fault. You gave it to me, right? So, but you engaged your free will in a particular way. So whatever it might be, I'm not saying Buddhism or this or that, but I'm just saying, yes, this is God given, but the freedom how we use it is also God given, and that's our option.
Can I add a little nuance to it?
Sure.
Please.
Yeah. Buddha's an avatar of Krishna.
Yes.
We're not talking about breaking the law. We're talking about an inclination towards a legitimate spiritual path.
Yes.
Right. Or I assume that Krishna.
Yeah. So there's different understandings.
At one point.
So there's a whole thing about that. But what we would say is that I'm not sure if you've heard it before, but that our understanding is that yes, Buddha is Krishna. And so attraction to Buddha is attraction to Krishna. But we believe that he taught a certain thing at a certain time for a certain purpose. And that was because the Vedic literature was being misused, misappropriated, particularly in terms of violence towards animals. And because it was so rampant that it took Krishna himself to appear as a sage. And he kept so much of the teachings that were there in the Vedas, but he rejected the Vedic teachings because they were being misappropriated. And so as Krishna Bhaktas, we accept Buddha as Krishna, but we don't accept all of his teachings. We accept the vast majority of his teachings as beautiful, healthy. If the world were following this, it would be a much better world. If people were following it, they would be much better people. We accept, the vast majority of what Buddha was teaching, but what we don't accept is where it ends. Where it deters one from developing love for God as a person. That's what we would say is missing in his teachings. And so we would say that yes, Buddha himself is Krishna himself, but his teachings are incomplete in that sense, is that they're not directing you towards loving God, not only as an energy, not only within your own heart, but also as a person. And that relationship, there's potential for you to give God the greatest pleasure and for God to give you the greatest pleasure in that realm.
When you follow those principles and you're self-controlled and you're controlling your mind, you're incredibly mindful, etc., even without God in the picture, you're making yourself incredibly ripe that when you do meet a Kylie of the world, like a person really absorbed in bhakti, you become Krishna's favorite. That's like, right? That's what, the 4 types of people that surrender to Krishna. It's, the way you were posing that question originally was how we're sort of like in an arranged marriage. It's like, I was just sort of put into this relationship with Krishna. Can I fall in love with him? Some of us came to Krishna out of destitution. I was just miserable in material existence and I wanted to find God desperately. And this was the best option on the menu, I thought, was Krishna Bhakti. But not everybody comes to Krishna like that. One who says, Krishna says, the ones who are the dearest to me are those who come that are already gyanis, the ones who are already very, very, detached, very deeply spiritual and detached and self-controlled and etc. And they're already almost hit this point of practical enlightenment. But then when they meet a Bhakti Vedanta, meet a person practicing Bhakti, they just ignite because they're already not of this world anyway. So you're in a beautiful place.
Like Shukadev Goswami.
Mm-hmm.
Like the 4 Kumaras.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. I think that's it. I think that's all for today.
That's it for the show. I'm sorry. We're going to do this again with this live crew.
We'll do it next week.
Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks, Live Posse. This has been good. What do you think about snake, huh? Kastuba, snake in the water. Snake. See any 5-foot snakes lately in New York?
Oh,
we got them here.
That's some other Mayapur song.
What is going on?
There's another Mayapur song. Here you go.
This would never happen to Raghunath.
I'm off today. I'm sorry, guys.
We got to find the show where we exactly coined that phrase. This would never happen. In there, we're thinking, when did we actually start saying that?
I don't know.